Marine Lord and Beastie, the CHIMPS, seed number 1, against a team that actually cleverly named itself Corona from coRe and Elyona. They are the underdogs over here, seed 16 in a best of 5 coming up that opens with a brand new map made for this tournament as well. It is Baldland. We have quite a few new maps in this series, ones that we haven't really seen in tournaments before, or we've only seen them a handful of times. Kerlogar, Baldland, and Scandinavia as well.
Yeah, Baldlands. I'm excited to see this one come out. We have Byzantine's Abba. Ooh, that is a boomy Civ combination if I've ever seen it. Defensive Civs. I mean, I feel like that just plays right into the hands of Beastie, right? Like, I mean, just how defensively he can play and how much he can just stay in a fight no matter what. Meanwhile, though, classic 2v2 matchup, right? French English. I mean, it does not get more class. Anyone who plays anywhere from like silver to diamond knows one of the most common 2v2 matchups you're going to find. You're going to see English and French paired together all the time because, like we were saying from the get-go of this day, Archer Cav, Longbows, French Knights, and Feudal, that's a winning combination in a lot of games. But again, Byzantine Abba, I wouldn't be willing to count them out either. That's a great combination to have as well. So this is going to be a really good game. I'm very excited for this one.
Now, when you look at Baldland, one of the key takeaways is that wood is a major problem. In general, your resources aren't super safe. So you gotta find ways to combat that issue, whether that's dictating the tempo of the game and setting the pace, or whether that's expanding with an additional town center to secure additional resources. It remains to be seen, but as you can see on that little icon of the map, most of the wood is kind of centered around the middle part of the map, so you want to have that under your control. And that kind of means that you gotta play aggressive at the beginning of the game. French and English, it's pretty obvious. I'm curious how Beastie and Marine Lord will approach this this need for an aggressive play style with the Abbasids and the Byzantines.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. The map is going to dictate a lot here. And this will be, again, this is a map that I don't actually have a whole lot of experience with, to be honest. This is one of those newer ones we haven't seen too much of. So it'll be really exciting to see how they play out. Again, I think English, French is a lot more straightforward though, right? French with Knights, English can go longbows. I'm curious to see if English goes for more eco. I worry about English trying to match like the eco of Abbasid. Like, it's kind of a losing cause to try to outboom Abbasid. So I'm curious if they'll try and go for like an all-in play, if they'll try and go really heavy feudal into one of the two of them. But again, such great players like Beastie and Marine Lord. I mean, your job is cut out for you as it is, right? But I think the resource management and the map control is going to become the key decider of this game, because where can Byzantines and Ayyubids go to be safe if they want to boom? They might be forced into a feudal game of forcing and try to take map control themselves, which can be difficult against French.
Remaining maps will be Scandinavia, Kerlogar, Coastal Cliffs, and the Cliffside. So we're going to have a no Dry Arabia in this series. I'm curious about Kerlogar and Scandinavia in particular, because we've seen Coastal Cliffs before, we've seen Cliffside before, although those are, again, maps that we mostly see in 1v1 tournaments, not 2v2s. But Kerlogar and Scandinavia, we really haven't seen these maps played in team game settings. And I think if you're coRe and Elyona and you're the underdog against this team, those are the ones that you want to secure. Those are the ones where you want to have that one sneaky strategy that wins you the game.
Yeah, a map like Scandinavia is, again, one of those maps I would hate to play on, because it's going to keep your head like on a swivel. You're going to be looking back and forth like at a tennis match, because the two waters, I mean, it's kind of like Holy Island, but doubled in a way, right? You got two sides to worry about with lots of water. That can make for some incredibly difficult and interesting interactions, as because it's not just win water, win the game. There's two sets of water. So you can win one, lose one, or you can win both. And, you know, there's going to be so much that's going to be a very, very interesting map to see play out. And I can't imagine the amount of difficulty it'll be to manage your resources on that map and to keep things balanced and to keep, you know, if you win the water, can you play it on the land? Like that one in particular, I think is going to be very, very tricky. I hope we get to see it.
We're just waiting for the game to start right now. I don't know if production can show us the brackets here, because I think we're getting to the stage where we have you know, a couple of talking points about those brackets. Indeed, let's take a look at how things are. We already have quite a few deciders coming up over here. Cosas que Pasan, which is Vortex and Lucifron, facing off against Makabaka. We'll see if that Taiwanese team can you know, cause an upset over here. They've played really well in the game that we've seen. I'm curious how they will do against Vortex and Lucifron. Oiling Boil, one of my favorite team
That's a
names.
great
That's
name.
yeah, I believe Sass and Baltoon facing off against the Magyar Marauders, Myriad and Corvinus. We got on the other side of the map. Is Canada? I don't, I want to be careful here because for whatever reason I remember Wham and Puppy Paw calling themselves North America. So I don't know if they're actually supposed to be Canada.
I mean, I think we all know who that it would be, though. Either way, that's got to be them, right? I can't think of
Yeah.
another S tier level duo in Canada other than those guys. They are it. Uh, Flying the proud red maple leaf there, going against the Lance Connects. That'll be fun to see. I don't know who's on that team. Do you know?
Yeah, I can tell you in just a second when I actually find them in this list. Um, it's a team that's led by Chrysor. We've seen him in a lot of 1v1 tournaments, and it's also May and the Gar, so two lesser known players, I guess, in the competitive scene. Then, of course, we do have 3 Dita. That is Anatan, B, and Cat. So they're still awaiting for their opponent. Elephant, Louis MT, CSO, also waiting for their opponent. And so is RCN, which is the Royal Couple of the North. That's Kiljari, Dimu, and Valdemar. So
Hmm.
a lot of big names still waiting for their opponents here in the deciders.
Yeah, it's only going to get more exciting from here on out, and I'm very enthused to be here with you today. This has been a fun day so far. We've had some fun games, and the fact that they're just going to get even more intense and more fun is getting me very excited.
Yeah, that's usually how things go, how tournaments go. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
increasingly fun as you go deeper into the tournament.
it was I guess to me it started so fun already, right? And just knowing it's going to get better, it's like, man, I'm getting hyped over here. It's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited to see Scandinavia and Kurlager again. Those are two I'm really excited. And actually, for that matter, Badland was one I was excited to cast on as well because it's not one I feel like I'm as familiar with. Again, it's a map that I would probably dread just by how open it is and how dangerous and easy it is to get rated. But I'm excited to see what these top level players deal with it. We've got 3.5 minutes to go. Goodness, I'm trying to think of what Byzantine and ABBA is going to do here on this matchup because the lack of wood is just very concerning. I feel like both Byzantines and Ayuba, or not Ayuba, excuse me, Byzantines and Abbasid really rely on a lot of wood early in the game. So I'm curious how that's going to affect their playstyle here.
I think one of the key things to highlight when you look at the lack of wood is that you have limited options if you don't have a lot of food available. You cannot just say, oh shoot, I'm running out of sheep, I'm running out of hunt, let's slap down a couple of farms to buffer up. Because, again, wood is a premium resource. And if we are talking about super early aggression, like towers or Dark Age aggression, you could even cripple your opponent's ability to drop that initial Feudal Age production building down. So this could really come down to factors like, hey, can I deny a new production building from being built? Can I deny houses from being built? On maps where you have so little wood to work with, those become factors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's one of those things too where like I think of like, I mean, these are such high level players that we're gonna see on this map here. But for someone like myself, not even close to these guys' level, I think of like the importance of getting a market early sometimes. Not too early, but like I'm talking like mid, late feudal into castle, like having a market ready to go to help balance out and sell off maybe some excess resources. I feel like my resource management is just going to be so difficult on this one that if you get caught without enough wood to build a market at some point on one of these maps, that could be really rough if you start floating too much gold or something. This is obviously for lower level play, but like that can apply to these high level games too, where if they get a resource denied and they need to swap something out, that could be really tentative if you don't have a way to do that. So I'm curious to see like just how they go about the lack of wood on this map. Because it looks like there's an abundance of gold, but I don't know you, but I hate when I'm floating gold and have no way to offload it.
It's actually very funny because one of the principles that is often talked about is if you have trouble managing your economy, this is especially for, intermediate or lower level players, but this is a principle I know even Dimu follows. He's the one who said this out loud. At least he was the first one I heard this from. He basically says that if you have issues macroing, one of the things you can do is just rally everybody to wood. Because you can always spend wood. Even if you don't have a market, you can build one immediately. You can always slap down a dozen farms. If you have a bunch of gold but you don't have wood, you cannot afford a market, and then it's a problem. So when you have a map with little wood, that causes complications because, as we just talked about, wood is probably the resource that's the easiest to spend. So
Hmm.
not having a safe and consistent source of wood can easily just completely crash your game plan.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why I'm saying too, like you know, if you get a little bit wood, extra wood early, especially early in this game, if you find yourself an extra 150 wood or so, 200 wood, I would I would be surprised if these guys don't build markets a lot. You know, and sometimes even high level players, people forget that they do that as well, just to help balance the eco. Because again, like if you have 2,000 gold, it's worthless to you if you're stuck in feudal age, and you can't gauge up. If you can't spend it, it's no good to you.
Well, we just have 30 seconds left to go here. This is going to be the first series, which eventually leads to a qualification spot. We have 8 players qualify, or 8 teams, I should say, qualifying today, 8 tomorrow, for a grand total of 16 teams that go into a GSL group stage and then a single elimination playoffs. So a lot of team game action to be had in the Winter Team Championship in the coming weeks. But first, we got to take a look at the Chimps versus coRe and Elyona. We're heading into Boldland for game number 1.
Diving in here in yellow and green, Beastie will be yellow, Marine Lord in the green, and then we've got Elyona, and I guess that'd be coRe as Chuck Francis in the pink and purple.
No, that's actually their backup.
Oh, is it really? Okay, so coRe's not playing.
We have 3 players on the roster, and I assumed it was going to be coRe and Elyona playing, but it's going to be a Chuck Francis and Elyona opening here. I did not expect that.
I did not either.
So I guess this is a good time to clarify that each team, this is a 2v2 tournament, but each team is allowed to sign up with up to 3 players, and they are welcome to rotate any combinations of players. There are obviously no restrictions on who they can substitute in and out. One drawback that you face if you sign up with more players, of course, is you know, you're going to be splitting your prize between multiple people. What it looks like, it's going to be a full French opening here. Elyona and Chuck Francis being both French players. Elyona, of course, with the French civ as well, but Chuck Francis with the English.
Yeah, we see the sheep gathering happening right now. Again, those wood lines, looking at, we've been talking about the map a lot. No safe real wood. It's small little patches. And that's probably the smallest wood line. That said, one thing that's different is if you look at the TCs, I mean, look at all those stragglers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straggler trees around your TC. Kind of reminiscent of prairie in that regard, where you get a lot more stragglers roundabout. But that only goes so far. We see 5 here on this TC for a Chuck Francis. So there is some close wood early. But again, those wood patches, not the most secure long term. See Abbey of Kings being dropped for Chuck Francis and the Grand Winery. No surprise there. Very safe berries for them. And an economic wing for Beastie.
Yeah,
that's not a surprise, right? Like, you gotta go. You're still gonna go eco. And it's like,
there are no major surprises over here. Abbey of Kings, I actually like the synergy of the Abbey of Kings with the School of Cavalry. You're going to have that king out as well for the English player. Allows you to put a lot of early pressure on the opponent. And of course, you do have the School of Cavalry coming out. I'm curious how Beast and Marine Lord will play this, though, because one thing that we haven't touched on yet is that the 2 teammates are always very close to one another on this map. So you could have someone like Marine Lord going into a couple of Limitani and just kind of doing all that defense against the cavalry by himself, allowing Beastie to do whatever else he wants, like go Camel Riders or go maybe a fast castle approach, play, dare I say, 2 TCs, trying to secure an extra patch of trees. I'm curious if we're going to see this kind of an opening from either of these teams. That is, one player being essentially to do it all when it comes to the defense or attack, and the other one is just like focusing on long-term planning.
Exactly. One thing I want to point out too, I like you mentioned the synergy between the English and French here. I really like the choice of Abbey of Kings because it's like having chivalry ready to go. If you ever have a weak knight, you just send him straight home. He just heals right back up again. So we kind of saw that with the Ayubids and Jeanne d'Arc, I believe, where the healing from the dervishes was just such a great way to get extra value out of those knights. The same could happen here with the 2 TCs being so close. You get a knight that's down to like 4 or 5 HP. You just send him back home for a minute. Then you got an extra knight again. So I think that could really play. I think that's something that people forget about Abbey of Kings, is that it does have that healing aura. You do also have the aura of healing of the king, which people see a lot of, but that landmark especially sometimes is, I think, a little bit underused in its value of healing up your military again.
It's exponentially better, I guess, when it comes to team games, because it is a great way to supplement your teammate. At the same time, it looks like it's just going to be a standard longbow opening with the archer range for Chuck Francis over here. On the other side, it's a Rex opening for Marine Lord, so he's going to be the one playing around the Limitani. And Elyona has an opportunity to split up the deer over here, which he definitely should. This is a really nice little pocket here for Marine Lord. I do want to highlight that Marine Lord's spawn is pretty generous here. He's got a cliff spawning right next to him, so he can kind of wall off this left flank and prevent any cavalry run-bys.
Yeah, he probably should too. In fact, he could even be a little more aggressive. There's that second wood line right after it. He almost could wall and maybe secure the extra wood a little bit. He could wall that to the wall, and that'd be pretty easy. And you secure that back one a bit more if you kind of wall in just a bit more, get that nice and safe. So yeah, pretty good spot to be if you're Byzantines. The question is, can Beastie hold? He does have the second town center in between theirs already now. So trying to kind of hedge up their base a little bit, get some eco going, as we see the first knight coming out for Elyona.
Second DC coming in for Beastie. So indeed, we kind of have that opening that I anticipated in a way. Marine Lord is kind of the player just focusing on the defense with the Limitani, and Beastie is just going to try and focus and play a slightly longer game here. And because there is a second DC out here for Beastie, Chuck Francis and Elyona will have to play aggressive. I guess their civilizations are well set up for that, though, because you've got that classic combination of longbows and knights. I would not be shocked to see maybe even a forward tower, but battering rams could be an option. I would expect to see these, the Elyona Chuck Francis team to just go essentially all in feudal aggression, see if they can win this before anyone hits Castle Age.
I think that's almost what they have to go for here, knowing that they're going against what I think it's fair to say superior opponents here. I mean, Beastie and Marine Lord together, very, very scary combo to go up against. The question is this base is so compact for Beastie and Marine Lord. I feel like pushing in, the longbows have enough range they can maybe help kind of pick off villas from the periphery, but it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy, as you see little cat and mouse with the Limitane and the knights getting a good little hit there, trying to just take some military damage where they can. But again, this base is very compact, and I'm curious to see how it's going to play out and how they could crack this nut, if at all.
Yeah, let's not forget, you can heal those knights back up if you are Elyona. You do have the teammates landmark out there. But at the same time, every time you pull your knights back to heal, that slows down this aggression. Let's not forget, though, Elyona does have the villager production boost with the French, so the economies are still neck and neck when you look at the combined villager counts, despite the fact that Beastie has been on 2 TCs for a while. But Beastie is going to now start pumping out army as well. It's going to be a horseman play in here. And one thing I've learned looking at 1v1s is that Knight and Archer always gets beaten by Spearman Horseman. I would presume that this kind of transitions into 2v2s as well.
Yeah, I would expect so. You can see some Limitane and Horseman coming out. And Limitane, obviously, with the extra armor, could tank a little bit. And they don't... And yeah, they lose mobility when they do that, but they don't need to be super mobile. They just need to defend. I mean, they're playing the long game, so that really does play synergistically for Beastie and Marine Lord to do that composition. We do see, of course, the Knights and Longbows looking around, trying to find a spot to poke and prod. It's not easy, as we see the first Longbows popping out for Marine Lord as well.
Yeah,
that's a dead scout almost.
In from, scout being lost, that hurts for Chuck Francis. A lot of vision will be lost. If you're Chuck Francis, you're going to have to start considering getting some spearmen going. Because if you don't have a couple of spears, you don't really have anything against those horsemen. That is a good move, though. I love this quite a bit for Elyona. Professional Scouts is immensely valuable on such an open map. Longbows now looking to chip away at that one scout, depriving Marine Lord of his vision. Marine Lord will lose the scout, but he basically trades this off for the king. Beautiful snipe with the longbows.
That was close. I wasn't sure if he's going to get away with it or not. Longbows getting picked off, but behind this, remember, this is now a bit of a distraction. We do have food being secured by Elyona behind this. Again, I mentioned at the very beginning of our stream today that it's not just Roos that does professional scouts anymore. You also get a lot of other civs like French or other aggressive civs that take map control going for it behind. I think French is probably one of the other big candidates for professional scouts. The question is, will it be enough to offset the difference here as we see some more cat and mouse, Knights getting pulled back? Tower, there's that tower you're mentioning, Litakor. There's right on the edge of the berries.
I feel like it's going to be very short-lived with no one being nearby.
That's probably true.
Like
well,
Marine Lord.
Scouted.
Yeah, Beast and Marine Lord did secure their bases. Now they're pulling ahead in terms of villager count. And Chuck Francis lost a lot of longbows. I don't think they can dive this anymore. You look at the army counts, Beast and Marine Lord are ahead. Now I wonder if Elyona is thinking about Castle Age here. because he's piling up a lot of food and gold. He could still reinvest into Knights, and that's exactly what he's doing. So I guess he's going to have to sideline that Castle Age plan. If they want to win, they got to leverage these Knights really well. And let's not forget, that still gives them a lot of mobility, and they just need one good run by. I don't think they can take a direct fight, but if they can find a way to hit that backline with these Knights, they could easily secure a massive momentum advantage.
Yeah, the tricky thing is that the longer they wait to do that, the more walls are getting popped up. We see the walls that I mentioned to the south being built, now to the north. We see that tower being spotted. BC wants to take care of it, but is not going to be able to. We see a ram getting dropped down by Chuck Francis. This is a very aggressive ram. I don't know that's going to get the value that he wants.
I feel like it's too late. I think the problem is that if you want to make a ram push happen, you need to have some sort of a military advantage. Numbers are neck and neck, and sure enough, you do have Knights, their value is much higher, but you're also going to push into Limitani, which is difficult to deal with, even when you have longbows accompanying your army. It looks like the Knights are just trying to distract Marine Lord and Beastie, and that ram push, supplemented by longbows, wanted to be alone for a moment. It's such a compact and well-defended base, though I don't really know
10
if
and
you
a
can
half,
push into
11
this.
minutes in. I don't know. What are you going to ram down is the question, right? Like, what is, I mean, the TC's in between the two in a really safe spot. You've got these rams. I mean, the mill's not going to be worth anything to ram down. Like, there's nothing there to ram, you know? Like, what's your target here? I just feel like
Let's not
this is
forget,
doomed.
wood is a premium resource on this map, and that goes both ways. This ramp push
That's
is
true.
awfully expensive for this map. At the same time, Beastie has two things that are very valuable out here. The stables. If you can yoink the stables, you can slow down Beastie's military production quite a bit, and that seems to be the game plan over here for Chuck Francis and Elyona.
I just wonder if it's worth the investment, though, you know, because those rams are pretty expensive. That's 400 wood you're doing to take down the stable. If you can get both stables down, it starts looking pretty good. He's going to get the one.
You were saying that. Okay, there we go.
Caster's Curse. Oh, my goodness. He might. I don't know if he's going to get the second one down. I think the spears might come in for that.
And they're waiting. They're trying to bait this army out now. Beastie's starting to move out with his cavalry, and he's looking to intercept reinforcements. Might actually come for a wrap from the side. That's exactly what he's going for. Knights will try to charge the horsemen. Nice micro by Beastie, splitting off the cav. But the longbows are just being surrounded over here, and Beastie's looking to intercept all the reinforcements. Knights are looking to stand and fight, trying to body block the troops from hitting the longbows. Rams are being pulled away over here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Beastie actually decided to clean this up. As I'm saying this, though, the horsemen are starting to fall from Beastie over here, and Knights are standing strong. Limitani, though, slowly grinding away at those. I feel like this is just not enough for Chuck Francis and Elyona.
Yeah, the trade was somewhat equal. The problem is, again, the investment of those rams. You got to imagine that they spent the money to, obviously, I think a blacksmith is worth the investment, but then they also spent the gold and wood investment into getting siege engineering, and then to build those two rams. It's a lot of investment with the tower right there. With wood being such a premium on this map, I don't know if it was the right choice because it was so late. They pushed in at like 11 minutes, and now they only have half the military that the chimps have now.
I think the big problem is the composition. Every single game I've seen in AoE 4, I kid you not, every single competitive game, Knights and Archers get beaten by Horsemen Spearmen. It's more cost effective, and you just need a couple of hits from each Spearman to make up for that cost on those Knights. Beastie and Marine Lord had a very compact base. They waited until they had the critical mass, and Elyona and Chuck Francis just needs a lot more mass to push into this. Now you're looking at Marine Lord, seeing that there is a window, looking to age up to Castle Age. And now that they are fully walled, it's incredibly difficult for these Knights to get in and do some backline damage.
Yeah, Chuck Francis and Elyona probably need to back up and just take what little map control they can get left and try to get some eco going, because the eco numbers are somewhat close. The Marine Lord being castle is going to be a big problem, though. That's going to just leave them in the dust if they're not careful. They need to figure out something new. They cannot just keep this all in going because it's just not going to work anymore.
And a problem that you're facing is that this comes at a time when you're starting to run out of safe resources. Marine Lord and Beastie, they've been playing very defensive so far, but they had safe resources. Now they are the ones with the military momentum, just when they need to start securing more map control to secure more resources.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the things I mentioned before we started this game is that Beastie is an incredibly good defensive player. Of all the good things he does in game, his defense is probably one of the top of those things. I mean, he is just he's a hard nut to crack on any day. But especially when you've got Byzantines helping you out on the side, he just can defend and micro his stuff and hold and hold and hold, unlike almost anyone else in the game. And so this timing attack was always going to be an uphill battle, but now once it loses a little bit of momentum, it just feels like it starts snowballing very, very quickly. Yeah, now we see him moving out on the field here with those horsemen. Knights not in a position to come help yet. They are on the other side of the map. A lot of exposed vills and stuff. Gonna opt to go for the scout instead. As Marine Lord clicks up and is now into castle. Beastie is also going up with military wings, so they have the economic lead, they have the military lead, and they're about to have the tech lead as well. And that's going to look very, very dangerous for Chuck Francis and Elyona.
Yeah, that's looking grim. You're down full age for both of your players. You got to make something happen. But the problem here is that even if you dive in now, let's say you kill 40 villagers. If you get cleaned up afterwards, the counterattack will just wipe you. That's the big problem that you're facing right now if you're Chuck Francis and Elyona. Your best bet would be to try and get yourself up to castle age, but that's the problem you're facing. If you just do that, you're outnumbered in economy. Their options are so limited right now. And Beastie is moving in with the flank once again. It's veteran longbows against feudal age ones. Limitani with the shield wall closing in on the knights as well. And it's not even the whole army of Beastie over here, but it's still in itself enough to deal with most of this. Now the camel archers are coming in to debuff the knights as well. And I feel like with this cleanup, the chimps will secure game number 1.
Yeah, I think that Chuck Francis and Elyona fell into kind of the trap of thinking, oh, they went castle age, ergo they don't have military mass behind this. We do. We should push the tempo now, which sometimes can be true, but in this case, they'd already lost so much that it's really tentative here. Their military numbers were not bigger by, if it was, but not by enough to push any kind of advantage that losing tempo by going up in age would give you. As you see, the cleanup kind of continues here. The military numbers are pretty even, slight edge still to the chimps, but with the tech advantages for both of them, I mean, even a slight edge, and now they're with every advantage they're gaining here militarily, it's just looking worse and worse for Chuck Francis and Elyona now.
Yeah, those longbows from Marine Lord are now two-shotting the knights, and that is something that Elyona and Chuck Francis know as well. It is game over. Beastie and Marine Lord secure game number 1. Not a surprising opening, I would say, from Elyona and Chuck Francis. A timing push with the English and French. Probably the oldest build in competitive team games. But on this map, Beastie and Marine Lord did a really good job just buffering it up and stalling it out until they had the critical mass. And it's part of the reason why we're seeing that timing push less and less in team games. Players simply learned how to deal with it.
Yeah, well, and it came down, I think, to where BC put his town center, right? His critical infrastructure was all in the middle between the two other town centers where they could both easily resupply and defend. I mean, yeah, he lost a stable, but that was only 150 wood. For the investment that went into it, totally not worth it. And again, it was because, I mean, this is going to sound a little funny, but they weren't greedy, right? Beastie and Marine Lord were not too greedy. They were greedy enough that they knew they needed to build some eco, but they were not greedy with where they put that eco, if that makes sense. They kept it in their base. They walled up. They decided they gave up all the deer essentially, right? Because, Elyona and Chuck Francis were able to go pro scouts, take all the deer, but they don't need that. They know as long as they can stay secure, get that critical mass going, get up in age, then they could move out and take over the map and play. And I think the not resisting the urge to go like 3 TCs or anything like that. BC just went with the 1 extra TC. They knew they had to defend the push. He put it in a safe spot, built military, and they didn't let greed overtake them. And then that let, Elyona and Chuck Francis overextend and assume that they had an advantage where they didn't and were able to turn the tables on them.
Well, let's take a look at the remainder of the draft over here. We're looking at a best of 5. The winner of this series goes into the main event, and we're going to continue this series on a cliffside. Delhi, French, and Mongols were the picks for the chimps, Mongols being sniped away from them. And on the other side, Byzantines were taken away, so coRe and Elyona, or, well, I guess I should say coRe, Elyona, and Chuck Francis will be in command of the Chinese and Jeanne d'Arc over here. And this is actually one of the interesting things to look out for when you start looking at the remaining teams. Are they actually rotating in their 3rd player? Are we going to see change-ups in the team composition whatsoever? There are certain teams which are basically locked in on top 2 players, whereas there will be teams, apparently, like coRe and Elyona's team, which actually do rotate in the 3rd player quite frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was really interesting to see Chuck Francis go in there. They gave it their best shot in the first game. This next one will be another very, very campy sort of map, but very easy to wall in. Chinese is, I think, a pretty good choice on a map like this, the Barbican can give you a lot of situational map control, can really kind of help secure a position up if they want. I think the two French civs are no surprise to me here, and Delhi also not a surprise with how easy it is to control the sacred sites on this map with where the cliffs are. This should be, I think this will be another slow-paced kind of game at first. We'll have some French Knights in the field, but I think the other two civs, Delhi and Chinese, are going to kind of sit back. I think Chinese especially could easily boom a little bit behind this. Delhi will obviously be going for some sacred sites. This should be a pretty good matchup. I'm excited to see it. First look at Cliffside too today. I haven't seen this map in the rotation for a while. It hasn't been in the 1v1 pool for online ladder for a little bit now.
Yeah, we haven't really seen it in a lot of tournament games either. But it's going to be very, very different in team games. I think this might be the first event where you actually see this map in team game settings. I don't think this was part of the map rotation for Winter Team Championship 1. In fact, most of the maps in this event weren't part of the rotation back when the first Winter Team Championships happened at EGC TV.
Yeah, and then, you know, that's a good way to keep things fresh too, right? I mean, the maps dictate the meta can dictate what kind of maps are preferred. Again, Cliffside, interesting map on 2v2s. It feels, this is a map that when you go on a 1v1, it feels, I won't say small, but you feel pretty close to your opponents. In a 2v2, it feels big. This is a map that just feels like it gets a lot bigger in a 2v2 setting for whatever reason. I feel like you're kind of far from your friend on this one a little bit. It feels like you're almost closer to your opponent on the other side of the cliffs. But it can depend on the spawn a little bit as well. But this is another one of those. This is one of those. Just as an anecdotal thing for me on Cliffside, I feel like certain maps like Gorge are always oriented the same way. If you think about it, like the Gorge is always oriented the same way. It's always going from the northeast down to the southwest, never from the northwest to the southeast. Whereas Cliffside, you'll get every single permutation under the sun. It might be zigzagging one way or another way. And so sometimes, this, anecdotally for me anyways, getting my bearings on this map can always be a little wacky at first, and kind of knowing where everything's at. You actually need to scout this map a little bit. And I'm sure these players will be more than ready to do that. But you get some more, this is a map that feels almost like Lippany to me, where no two generations feel quite the same.
Well, we just have 1 minute 30 seconds left to go here. The Chimps with the 1-0 lead. While we are waiting for the next game to come up, we can once again take a look at the brackets to see how the other sets are going. As usual, in the open qualifiers, we have a lot of sets running at the same time. So let's take a look at how things are elsewhere. Looks like not a lot of scores have been recorded, or we don't have very many games concluded just yet. But one thing I'm seeing is that the Canadians, Wen and Puppy Paw, have gotten their opponent finally. It looks like Dimu, Kiljardi, and Valdemar are still waiting for an opponent right there. So are Louis MT and his teammate in Elephant. I'm curious, what do you think about these matchups? Like, is there any particular, match that you are extremely hyped about?
It's hard to say. I'm excited to see Devils and Sheep go at it. That'll be kind of fun. I think that'll be a more close series. I'm really curious with after watching their series, Makabaka. I'm curious to see how well they play into Kosasuke Pasan. They played pretty well. They showed some grit, I think, in that game, but also some vulnerability in their overextensions. That's one I want to keep my eye on to see if they can maybe continue the trend of 2v2 players coming in on the scene and maybe surprising us a little bit. I'm curious to see how that turns out. But besides that, I'm excited for the Canadian Bros and Lance Connects to go at it. I enjoy watching the Canadian Bros quite a bit.
Yeah,
they play very well together, I think.
They are, and I think it would be a shock not to see them in the main event. It's going to be very fun with multiple brother pairs in the main event, but it looks like we do have a matchup coming up here. Beast and Marine Lord, they're not brothers, but they are on the Chimps team. That is the seed number 1. We'll be heading into game number 2 on the Cliffside to face off against Elyona and Chuck Francis coRe. If I'm not mistaken, he is going to continue watching from the sideline. Indeed, Elyona and Chuck Francis once again with the pink and purple colors playing as Jeanne d'Arc and the Chinese. And down south, we have Beastie and Marine Lord with yellow and green playing as the French and the Delhi.
This is a fun map spawn. As I was mentioning about Cliffside, kind of spawning left, right, who knows which way. This is a very north-south kind of map spawn. I'm kind of excited for it. We see the cliffs obviously running east to west, and we've got the north side, south side, Beastie Marine Lord in the south, as you mentioned, and up in the north, Chuck Francis and Elyona. I'm very curious to see what we get out of the Chinese player here. I think that's one of those maverick civs that can do multiple different things. So we'll see how they decide to play this.
Yeah, this is a map where you can play a little bit more defensive and try to play for the late game. Those cliffs in the middle allow you to section off the map a lot better, and it just slows down the mid and late game. I actually wonder if we're going to see glimpses of that from the players. It's also easier to see your opponent approaching and see if there is any aggression coming your way. And if you don't see that from your opponent, then going heavily into the eco with a civ like the Chinese is definitely a good opportunity.
Yeah, these cliffs are, there's some wackiness to these cliffs a little bit. You can see, like, I'm looking at the between Beastie and Chuck Francis, there's like almost 3 layers of cliffs in the mini map that I can see. Lots of little choke points in between there. And that's kind of one of those weird things where in the 2v2 version of this map, you just get lots of little chunks that you can wall in, lots of teeny little choke points that you could fight in, which can make this a very, like you said, a very defensive, campy map, which I'm thinking of the 2 civs that are going to be the happiest to do that are going to be Beastie and Elyona, are both very, very good late game civs. Obviously, I'm curious if we'll see some elephants this game. Dare I say we might see some Dumbos on the field if this game goes late.
Very possible. I mean, if you think about it, if both teams are focusing on slow-moving units and just trying to muscle their way through those narrow choke points in the middle, elephants suddenly become a lot more versatile and viable under those circumstances, I guess.
Yeah, and we might be here for a while if they decide to do that too. We haven't had many games go too terribly long, and they've been pretty quick going, pretty fast paced. We see the first landmarks being dropped, School of Cavalries, for both Marine Lord and for Chuck Francis. Where are those vills moving out to? It looks like they're heading out towards either a deer pack or maybe, yeah, it must be the deer pack out in the back there. That's immediately going to be spotted by Beastie if he sticks around. Looks like he's sticking around. He's going to see it. He's going to see it. And there he goes. He will immediately spot that. Some good scouting by Beastie there.
Yep,
He
nice
actually
little
helps
help
him out
for
a
the
little bit.
teammate. Nice little teamwork
wait,
in general here.
I
Beastie's
thought
pushing in a
Beastie
deer
was,
for his teammate Marine Lord.
I thought we were looking at Elyona for a second. I just completely confused myself.
Yeah,
I thought Beastie
I was
scouting it out.
wondering, but
Yeah, that was my brain just kind of shorting out there. Yeah, no, he's gonna help push those out. I was like, wait, he's pushing him in. It's like, oh yeah, they're on the same team. Hello, this is a 2v2 tournament. You're just so used to seeing them go at it, you know?
And, well, to be fair, knowing their relations, I would not be shocked if they were doing that in a 2v2 when they're on the same team either.
I'm just so used to them being, you know, opposites in a 1v1 that my brain like jumped right to that. No, helping out, being a good teammate, pushing in those deer. That's a good safe deer too, you know, kind of in the back. Be a long way for the French Knights to get there for John Dark.
Yeah, speaking of whom, it's going to be School of Cavalry for both French players out there. And then Dome of Faith, kind of what's expected from Beastie. Obviously, on this map, we've seen Dome of Faith Delhi today once, and that was on Himayama. It's difficult to secure sacred sites there. Here, it's a lot easier. First of all, it's reasonably easy to just partially wall off these sacred sites and block the enemies from taking it away from you the moment you cap them. And second, you're going to play heavily into the Dome of Faith and heavily into Scholars, so you're going to have a lot of Scholars available to potentially capture those sacred sites with.
Yeah, it definitely is. With the 3 out there as well, I would not be surprised if BC was able to control at least 2 of those for the majority of this game. If he can get all 3, they could almost make a defensive hold. Maybe I don't know if you really want to use that as your. I don't think anyone plans going in to go for a sacred site win, unless you're like on King of the Hill. But you know, if you can get all 3 and start holding them, if things start working your way, that's always a good thing to fall back on, especially against a turtley civ like Chinese. But
Yeah,
we'll see how they go again.
This is always something I like to highlight. I don't think there are very many maps, especially these open maps, where you approach capturing the sacred sites as a true and genuine victory condition. But if you just capture them for the passive gold income and you just happen to be able to hold them for 6-7 minutes, it suddenly becomes a very legitimate win condition. So if for nothing else, then for the gold income and potentially the passive opportunity to maybe make this a win condition, definitely makes those sacred sites legitimate targets early on.
Yeah, I would say capturing them for the gold alone is more than worth it. But then also being able to put that timer on the background, because eventually it does. You're right. 6 minutes can go by pretty quick in this game when things start slowing down. And that's a great way to make your opponent go, oh no, I need to get on the field and take one of those out. And then suddenly it's a scramble, right? It goes from not a problem, not a problem, not a problem, until at some point on that timer, it becomes a problem. And speaking of problems here, looks like Marine Lord's got a couple problems in his base, and they are Chuck Francis's Knights as they pick off a Vil and get out scot-free.
Yeah, Knights
Ooh,
pushing up
that-
here for Marine Lord. The scout does get
That's
away.
How much HP is that?
That's
1
2
HP to
HP.
Dream. It just ticked up back to 2. That was close.
And it's crucial. That one scout is the unit that allows you to seek out targets. Without them, the Knights are virtually blind. Nice little body block here from Chuck Francis, once again saving that one scout. Beastie is coming in with his own scout to body block, and instead he just swings his sword with the scout, takes out the opponent, taking away all that line of sight from Chuck Francis.
I gotta say, this is my favorite thing about casting and watching high-level play like this is the micro is just so unbelievably good. As someone who plays this game a lot, it just boggles my mind how good they are at microing those units. Firstly, that Knight body block to keep the scout alive, and then Beastie coming in, just getting it right on there. Just such a good play. Well played by both players there. I think looked like Chuck Francis did everything in his power he could to keep it alive, but Beastie with the scout with the steel chair, you could say, coming in and getting them down. And like you said, the vision, it's so important. There's those walls. First walls coming up. Beastie already starting to get his side in. I like these a lot. I mean, I know there's some players out there who really despise the turtliness of having to build walls everywhere, but I think you just got to do it. It's just such a smart play.
Yeah, and securing those walls also means that you are going to have at least some of the relics on this map guaranteed for you. In total, we have 7 relics, most of them situated around that middle part of the map. So when you're looking at a civilization like the Delhi, for instance, once you get to Castle Age, you could get a massive amount of passive gold income if you can yoink the majority of the relics.
You know, that's a good point that we haven't really touched on yet today, is that in team games, there are just more relics throughout the map. So civs, like, that's why we've seen many civs like HRE getting picked, because if they can get that influx, I mean, imagine the bonus you'd get from that would just be incredible. And you're right, with Delhi, I mean, he can get 6 relics like very quickly if they get up into Castle Age. No, that's something we haven't really talked about. There's just so much more out there. A lot of scouts there from Beastie. Is he going professional scouts?
I think so. And that's actually
Looks like it.
It's actually a pretty smart thing if you think about it. With a Delhi, you get that upgrade for free anyways. It's not a big investment to grab a couple of extra scouts. And I guess the return value is massive, not just because you are also boosting your own food eco, but also because you can ferry some of those deer carcasses to your teammate who's playing French, and he will be in the need of a lot of food.
Yeah, that's a really fun play to see. And it's like one of those things where, I mean, how much is it to build an extra mill? 50 wood. Why not? That's such a cheap, I mean, it's just a time thing then, waiting. Is this wall going to get up in time? This is going to be close. It does. What about the other side?
Oh, I think there might be Nope, it's not
It's
open.
close.
Now it's open. Knights coming in, and that's only archers. There's nothing that protects them, but looks like they're just going to be able to run away for most of this. I feel like Chuck Francis and Elyona are realizing that if they don't stop this, Beastie and Marine Lord will just section off the map and go late game.
Yeah, and again, BC has no qualms doing that. You know, he's got no issue going late game, taking the sacred sites, letting the counter tick down, booming behind it. They will gladly acquiesce to that, I think. Meanwhile, Juganu coming out here, trying to take down a knight. They might not get one. Boy, that's quite a bit.
That's
Jugs
quite a
are
lot
one
of
of the-
Chukanu, and if you are Marine Lord and Beastie, you got to be cautious about that. Mass Chukanu is no joke. Beastie does have 20 archers, but they're not Tower of the Victory archers. Has 9 scholars, make it 10 to heal as well. Knight numbers are looking a lot better for Marine Lord, though. He's got 15 versus just 9.
I'll say BC does have a pretty sizable archer mass. He's going to have almost close to 30 archers coming out here in a bit. He's got 23 in the field right now, 5 more in the queue. That could deal okay into Juganus, but then you got to worry about those knights as well. This could be some very back and forth play we're about to see.
Eco counts are neck and neck still. Beast and Marine Lord have essentially walled off their flanks. There is only one area where the opponents can breach, and that's this middle part. And looks like we are heading towards that choke point fight we've been talking about. Jean d'Arc getting caught in the middle here. I wonder if that was an intentional bait or just a misclick over here. Whichever way, you better be very cautious. You don't want to lose Jean d'Arc in the middle of the field with absolutely no escort.
Yeah, that was really close. That could have been a very sad thing to throw away. At this point, we see walls coming up on Marine Lord's side as well. So he's walling his backside a bit, keeping things safe. As you mentioned, it's kind of just the front doors. That's all it's open right now. But that is a lot of Jugunu. That is a lot of Jugunu. This is a unit that can be kind of frustrating to play against because they just do so much damage a second. It is so difficult to deal with too, especially in Feudal Age. Thankfully, they do have a lot of knights, but man, they can just shred through stuff.
Yeah, especially knights. They are much better against the knights than archers are, and that's going to be a consideration. Now, at the same time, Beastie does have 40 archers, and archers are usually a good counter to Jugenu. Now, Beast and Marine Lord know that they are converging on this right side here. Another Knight Force, make it 2. And that's alarming for Chuck Francis. That's part of the reason why he's behind in terms of Knight numbers relative to Marine Lord.
Yeah, losing those is just, it's one of those things like, this isn't really a French mirror, but anytime you're going against 2 French-ish civs, I'll say, you can't afford to lose knights. Like, it's once you lose a couple, it snowballs so quickly. And you just don't want to get behind on that because they're just, when you're paying for premium units, you got to keep them alive.
It looks like Chuck Francis and Elyona want to decide the game very soon. They're going for a ramp push once again. This time around, the army count is a little bit better than what it was in the previous game, but once again, Beast and Marine Lord are just playing this very patiently, very cautiously, and they're basically waiting for their opponents to make their move. With the support of Town Center Fire and just having your production closer, they should be able to hold this off. In fact, they're up by quite a significant amount of military already.
Yeah, I feel like, again, this will be maybe a bit more of a, this push makes more sense than the one last game, but gosh, I feel like they run a really high risk of getting caught out guard and getting overwhelmed very quickly here. They don't actually
Marine
have
Lord has no gold
advantage.
though. He's got 0 villagers on gold. His gold mine had to be evacuated. If there is one win condition here for Chuck Francis and Elyona, it's shutting down that gold income from Marine Lord and stopping him from producing knights.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If they can keep that pressure right there, that could really help. Because once Marine Lord stops making knights, we see he's already moved out to the other gold vein, trying to mitigate those effects very quickly. Man, if they could just see that. But again, it's hard to scout this big of a map and see everywhere your opponent might go and hide, as they just keep playing this cat and mouse, looking for a place and an angle to attack. That wood mine in the front doing a lot to help out Marine Lord and keep them out of his base.
At this point, I wonder if it's better for Chuck Francis and Elyona to just fall back. Like, at the same time, look at this. Beastie was able to capture all 3 sacred sites, and this is what we've been talking about. When you've got 12 scholars on the field, you can easily afford to just send out 1 or 2 to collect those sacred sites. Chuck Francis and Elyona haven't been denying it. Now could be the time for a timing push, though. Beastie is heading into Castle Age. They need to fight this before Beastie gets the Castle Tex.
Honestly, if they don't know he's going castle, and there's no way they're going to be able to get there in time, they're going to instead dive towards Marine Lord's side. You're going to get some vills there, trying to take down the production on this side. But I think this actually might work out for Beastie pretty well, because he just wants to get up in age, but he doesn't really want to take a fight right now if he doesn't have to either. He wants those archers to stay alive. That said, Chuck Francis and Elyona kind of playing cat and mouse, not committing to anything, neither player wanting to throw. And it's so easy to throw here. If you miscalculate this and lose your army, it's game.
I want to say, whoever wins this fight wins the game.
Yeah.
A stable goes down here for Marine Lord. Beastie's going to be up to Castle Age. Chuck Francis and Elyona will get that notification. I feel like they're diving too deep, though. They could be easily wrapped around. Beastie is now up to Castle Age. He needs the text, though. He's got quite a lot of scholars, but he's still playing the deli. And you can just see, the moment the notification comes in, Chuck Francis and Elyona will be looking to dive. 31 knights against 28. Much more neck and neck than what it used to be. 70 Jukenu as well. Quite a lot of spears. This might be the opportunity for Chuck Francis and Elyona.
Yeah, it's only going to be a short matter of time for those upgrades to come in for Delhi. It won't be too long before they get in. It's a shame we can't see them on the screen, but I'm sure they're ticking up as we speak. Yeah,
he's not going to lose this building before the upgrade. Upgrade is now in, though. It's veterancy. I feel like it might just be too late now for Chuck Francis and Elyona. The timing is perfect here by Beastie and Marine Lord. The moment the upgrade comes in, 70 archers with veterancy come in now. Knights against knights, Jugenu against the archers. And I just feel like the ability to reinforce a lot quicker and the Castle Age upgrades are the things that decide this fight. Beastie and Marine Lord, they are looking to hold.
Yeah, 70 archers, 71 archers behind that. That sheer DPS, it's almost ludicrous how much there is there. They're going to just clean this up easily. The Jugenu are going to drop like flies. It's amazing how they really were just waiting for that upgrade to kick in. It did not take very long with that many scholars, and this is why Tower of the Victory isn't as useful usually in 2v2s as it would be going for the Dome, because getting those extra scholars, getting the upgrades very quickly means Delhi can get online a lot faster. And we're seeing now, I mean, 70 archers, they don't care how many knights you got anymore. They're just going to pick them off one by one.
Yeah, now it's a scramble for Elyona and Chuck Francis, and as I said, whoever wins that one fight is probably going to win the game. Now they're looking to get up to Castle Age. Elyona might even make it, but they're outnumbered 2-1. By the time they get back home, it's too late.
It's Castle
You're
into
going to have
GG
nothing
at this
to
point.
upgrade.
Yep, it's Castle into GG. I almost feel like if they wanted to sustain a push like this, they need more. If you want to sustain a push against an opponent trying to castle, you need more eco. You know, especially if you can't outproduce them in feudal. There is the clock tower coming in, but what is it going to get them, right? Even a nest of bees isn't going to take out all those archers at this point. Feels like the writing is on the wall as the knights, and they both are clicking up. Oh, yeah, that's going to be really rough.
That's the other problem for Chuck Francis and Elyona. Now that they are up to Castle Age, they're looking to just compensate for their lack of numbers with technology, but it's too late. Beastie has all the Castle Age techs, not just the veterancy. Remember, he's able to pick up upgrades very quickly. He's probably full blacksmith by now. And Marine Lord is about to get to Castle. He's got 30 knights, soon to be with Royal Bloodlines. Looks like it's only one blacksmith though, so it's not as fast as I anticipated it would be.
There is an elephant though. Archer Tower Elephant coming out. This game is very much over, I think. Unless something absolutely crazy happens, like Beastie accidentally deletes all 70 of his archers, I don't see how they get back in this. There are a lot of Zoogs, but again, 134 military to 74. I know which team I'd bet on at this point.
You would need some absolutely ludicrous hits with Nesta Beast to make this happen. Chukenu trying to hold this off over here. Jean d'Arc trying to get to level 3. But that's the thing, Royal Bloodlines takes a long time to research. Veterancy is not in on the Knights just yet, and still a 2-to-1 army ratio. I don't know if you want to fight this if you're Chuck Francis and Elyona, but looks like they're standing and fighting, trying to hold this off. But the numbers are just too overwhelming. They should be cleaned up over here. While all of that is happening, Beastie is securing the sacred sites, he's securing the relics. I mean, Beastie can almost go into Imperial at this point.
Yeah, this is one of those things where like they've got nowhere else to run, so they're making a stand here in the hopes that maybe Beastie like just again deletes all of his archers inadvertently. But there's not much more they can do here. They've done the best they can. Again, I think they were just kind of poking around in feudal trying to go all in, and the risk of going all in is you have no follow-up if your opponents hold. And we're seeing that here as GG is called a couple times today. Yeah.
2 subsequent games. I feel like if they need to change this up for game number 3, because this has been the pattern in many team games that I've seen. Timing attacks are basically an all-in roll of a dice. They either work or they do not. And if they don't, you lose the game, basically.
And of all the people to try that on, Beastie, he's probably one of the best at defending those kind of timing attacks. So it's very tenuous to try. Again, you're always going to be an uphill battle going against Marine Lord and Beastie on the same team. And so to that end, I think Elyona and Chuck Francis gave it their best. It's just tough, though. I mean, they didn't know that if they'd have known Beastie was going up in age, they maybe could have dove his base as he was aging up. But it's really hard to tell that, right? Like, how are you going to know that without having a scout basically in his base? Because if they know that, maybe there's a window there. But I mean, once the veterancy hits for those archers, the sheer DPS is just way too much to overcome.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I feel like one of the problems that Chuck Francis and Elyona have been facing here is simply the fact that they kind of need to push. And that's how Beast and Marine Lord set up the game plan. They go very greedy on the eco, and they know that the opponents will be forced to push as a consequence. And because Chuck Francis and Elyona weren't really interested in playing just an all-out booming game, they indeed decided to push. But because Beast and Marine Lord knows that there is going to be a push coming in, they are just going to be well prepared for it. There is a difference between booming and booming. It's not like they've just been fully eco-focused, rushing castle whatsoever. They've been essentially building up an army back at home, and they've just been looking to take that fight inside their own base instead of on neutral grounds or in the enemy base.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying last time, right? They weren't being greedy with this boom, you know? They weren't being greedy with the tech ups either. They were playing with feudal units and playing back and forth. They're not just going full greed, you know? And so it's hard to punish that because there's nothing to really to punish. They're just playing it very straight and not going too crazy. They're not, again, they're just not getting overly greedy. They haven't been taken by the avarice of going triple TCs or something crazy this time around. And so we see the bans and the choices coming in here for the draft. Another interesting combination here, Ubids and Roos for the Chimps, and over here in Elyona, coRe, and Chuck Francis, they will be going Biz and Abba this time around.
Now, hear me out. If there is one map where you could justify playing this 1 TC all-in aggro push, it's probably the Coastal Cliffs.
Coastal Cliffs.
It's a mini Arabia. Very condensed, very small space. And there is a massive amount of value in that distance being smaller. It means that the attacker has an easier time reinforcing. It means that you can rally your forces in front of the enemy base a lot sooner. So if Elyona and coRe go for the or I guess I should say Elyona and Chuck Francis, unless they rotate in coRe for this. If Elyona's team goes for the same approach, it might work better than it did in the previous 2 maps. Having said that, Beast and Marine Lord did a really good job holding it off twice, so you gotta ask yourself the question, are you going to try the very same thing for a 3rd time, despite it not having worked the previous 2 times?
I feel like if they don't, hear me out, I don't expect this to happen, but I feel like with the luck being what it is, if they try to with this map especially, if they try to go greedy on this map, this would be like the one time that Beastie and Marine Lord would just all in on this one, right, and just flip the script and just go, oh no, now we're doing it, and it would work, you know, just because they would probably take advantage of that smaller map. That said, I think Roos and Ayubids, I think that's a good combo to push in. It feels crazy, but I think this map, the calculus is different. If you were gonna try the all-in, I agree with you, this is the map to do it. It is easy to wall in, though. I will say one thing to consider is that this is a map that could be walled in quite easily as well. And once that happens, it's going to be tough to break in, and then you run into the same problems as before. I mean, Byzantine and Abba can go all in and can maybe take out like a Ubids, but Roos could easily wall in. A Kremlin could really hold things down for Beastie and Marine Lord. But on the flip side, I think Marine Lord and Beastie really could push in against Biz and Abba and kind of succeed where maybe in the game on Badlands, Elyona and Chuck Francis maybe failed. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Because right now the advantage is definitely towards Marine Lord and Beastie. They are probably feeling very comfortable about where they're at right now.
Yeah, I feel like the concern you have here, if you are coRe and Elyona, is that Abbasids is not really your classic aggro civilization. I mean, you can play it in that way. You can maybe play Horsemen or Archer Spearmen. I can see Byzantines playing aggressive in Feudal. That is, in fact, something that we've seen a lot of times. But I don't know how you're going to utilize that in combination with the Abbasids. And at the same time, I see a Roos, which gives me ideas about a Kremlin.
Yep.
Stall this game out. And I see an Ayubid game, which once again, to me, Ayubids scream a fast castle in order to force the hand of your opponent. If you don't push that, you're just going to get absolutely mauled by the Ayubid Castle Age. But if you do, you're running into the same problem that has plagued the previous 2 games for Chuck Francis and Elyona. You are the ones forced to push, and your opponent knows that you have to push, so they'll be ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Abbasid's not going to be able to do that. And I feel like, if anything, I do think Beastie and Marine Lord will probably be more aggressive this time around, because it is going to be much harder for them to hunker down. Because, I mean, it's what else can you do, right? Abba, really, you're right. You really can't push that easily. Especially, I would expect a Kremlin on this game, just because why would you not? It just really secures your line, lets you be more aggressive on the field. This will be interesting. If they can pull off the upset, I'm trying to think of what their avenue to victory here would be on this, because I definitely think I favor the Civ choices of the Chimps. I definitely think they have the stronger duo for this map, especially. I guess Byzantines kind of has to have to pull off what Beastie and Marine Lord did on Badlands, you know? That was another place that doesn't have a lot of room to grow, not a ton of wood. So I guess they have to kind of play. Abba needs to play like a 1 safe TC. Byzantines probably needs to look at, I don't know. It's tough, like trying to hold, but again, that just invites the other opponents to go Castle Age. And the Ubids, you're right, I think this is a good place to go fast castle with them. And then you could send out, Camel Lancers, you can send out Gulams. Both of those would be really good choices here against Abbasid and Byzantines.
Yeah, I really wonder if this is gonna be some sort of a crazy all-in from coRe and or I guess again I should say Elyona and Chuck Francis. I don't know if coRe is gonna play today, but so far it's been Elyona and Chuck Francis. I'm just puzzled about the Abbasid pick. That's my biggest problem here. If it was any
Yeah.
other map, if it was Cliffside, I say okay, I see the vision. It's more of a long-term civilization, but
Hmm.
Abbasid is probably one of the um, weakest civilizations in many ways when it comes to facilitating a feudal age push. Besides
Hear
the
me out.
ability to build rams in feudal, they don't really have much going for them when it comes to early aggression. And sure, you
No,
can
they
build
don't.
rams, it's nice, but you need to be able to protect those rams, and that has always been the problem for Elyona and Chuck Francis.
Hmm. Hear me out. I have an idea for Abbasid. They could go for a fast castle play. Maybe try and fast castle into. But then what do you go? Gulams? That's not really going to work. You can't really Gulam rush in a 2v2. I could maybe see maybe a culture wing though play. Maybe try and get up in age quickly. Maybe I don't know, but I agree. It's a very odd on this map. It just feels very odd because I feel like their best play is always the eco wing. Military wing's not going to give them enough tempo. The culture wing, there's no trade on this map that's going to be useful. Um, yeah, maybe they go for a fast castle with culture wing. It just feels like what's the end result there? What are you going to get in castle age? Like I guess you could make lancers, but that doesn't feel very good into a Ubids and Roos. You can go Gulams, but again, feels like horse archers could just walk around you all day. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
Tough.
my
It's an odd
that's my
choice.
big problem. Um, Everywhere I look, the concern I think for Elyona and Chuck Francis is that let's assume that you go Castle Age with your Abbasids. Aeobids can do just the same, and then you've already lost your early attack potential. So,
Yeah.
um, in a way, I feel like Aeobids can mimic whatever the Abbasids are doing, just better.
Hmm.
And at the same time, Byzantines, it's also a civilization that can be used well for early aggression, but they are plagued by the problems that are related to the mercenaries. It takes time to build up that longbow mass. It's not like you can
Hmm.
pump those units out super quick. And at the end of the day, we've seen Marine Lord and Beastie be able to hold off aggression with civilizations that should be, in theory, weaker in defense.
Hmm.
In particular, I feel like the French and Delhi, I would prefer to defend with the Ayyubids and the Rus versus French and Delhi. So I feel like they actually have a better matchup in this game than they had in the previous one.
I actually fully agree. I would definitely prefer to be on the Ubids and Roos main, and not just because I play those civs more than I play Biz and Abba, but I think on this setup, I mean, a Kremlin between their two bases, or even just on top of like if they have like two wood lines, you can just put a Kremlin there. I just feel like the civs are just built to play on this map a lot easier. That said, maybe they can get away with it. I don't know if they can get that second town center in a really good spot. Maybe it'll depend on the spawn. Yeah, we've seen wacky things happen in games before, but it will be an uphill battle for Elyona, coRe, and Chuck Francis to win this one, I think.
Indeed, we just have 10 seconds left to go, so we will be heading into a decider game here. Should Beastie and Marine Lord win, they will be in the main event. To no one's surprise, to be honest, they are seed number 1 for a reason. But still, Elyona and Chuck Francis will try to make their life a little bit more difficult here, or dare I say, try to pull a reverse sweep over here. It's gonna be a tough one though, because this
It'd be
civilization
legendary
matchup
if they did.
isn't. It's
It would be
it
absolutely
would be
legendary if they did.
yeah, indeed. It would be nothing short of miraculous for Chuck Francis and Elyona to pull this back. But you never know. We've seen some crazy things in competitive Age of Empires before. Once again, it's Marine Lord and Beastie with the colors green and yellow, facing off against Chuck Francis and Elyona with pink and purple. We're heading into Coastal Cliffs, which, again, is a deceiving map. You have that big patch of water on the left side, but in reality, it's totally inaccessible because of this cliff. This map is no different from Dry Arabia, just a little smaller.
Yeah, we can see the wood lines now taking a look here. Marine Lord's got the wood in the back. BC's got his woods around him. Chuck Francis does have a pretty favorable wood line as far as things go. However, as I say that, I'm looking at his gold up in the front. Not ideal where that gold's at, but the wood lines are a bit more in the front, a little more wallable potentially. If Lona needs to maybe go wall in, they've got three wood lines that can wall in. It's a defendable-ish. We'll see how it goes. Again, the tempo that BC Marine Lord are going to have with their civs is going to be difficult to to accomplish.
That's the concern here for Chuck France and Elyona. I'm still struggling to see how they can potentially disrupt an bit fast castle, or even push into Iru space. Now, one thing to highlight here, I think this is an important talking point. In game number 1, Beastie and Marine Lord were very close to one another. It was a very condensed base that's tough to push. And even in game number 2, they weren't very far apart. But this game in particular, they're pretty far away from one another. So I could see a setup where Chuck France and Elyona just try to double team one of the players and cause so much damage that it's extremely difficult to recover from. I feel like that might be their best course of action, just trying to double team, let's say Beastie. If Beastie's trying to go Castle Age, you might just double team him and see what you can do against him.
Yeah, there is always the option, right? If you can eliminate one player from the game, then it's a 2v1. The tricky thing is it's easier said than done, right? Easier said than done, and we will see how this pans out here. We have Grand Winery coming in. It is Culture Wing from Chuck Francis, so I think we will be seeing a fast castle play from him then. That was my guess. And again, the reason I was thinking maybe that would be the best option is, yeah, BC could just do the same, but clearly just sitting around going eco might not do much for you either, because you just know you're gonna get overwhelmed. And it kind of reminds me what Puppy Paw told me back at King of the Rockies, that sometimes when you have a disadvantage, you're at a disadvantage with the Civ matchup, you just gotta play off meta and try something new, see if you can disrupt it somehow. Whether or not it works, I don't know, but you're at a disadvantage anyway, so kind of a YOLO moment of might as well.
And it looks like it's going to be Scouts opening here from Marine Lord. Not surprising for the Ruse, but torching down this mining camp just tells you everything you need to know. It's disruption and slowing down that harassment by Marine Lord. If you think about it, if you anticipate aggression from Chuck France and Elyona, like a timing push, if you can do anything to slow it down, just even like forcing some idle time for the villagers repairing the mining camp, or dare I say destroying the mining camp, that in itself can throw off this early aggressive timing push from the opposing team.
I love the play just to do those little annoying things, right? And there's that mining camp torch to the ground. Those little things just to annoy, maybe even to delay the golden age a little bit more. Just anything you do to slow things down can help. It is going to be Golden Gate from Marine Lord. That, to me, just tells me that Marine Lord is very confident in holding his position and defending, that he feels he does not need a Kremlin whatsoever. Which, to be fair, he's Marine Lord, so I don't doubt him in the slightest.
He didn't need the Kremlin in the previous game, okay?
Yep, nope, he did not. So I do not doubt it. We do see the dervishes coming out for Beastie. Again, that might be a feudal play from them. Again, very powerful. We saw how effective they were in that game on him and Yama.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can do that just like we've seen it with the French or Jeanne d'Arc. Use the dervishes to heal the Friends Knights. And, well, we've been talking about the possibility of double teaming one of the players. Beast and Marine Lord know about that as well. They're getting those walls up very early, just making sure that there are no opportunities for Chuck Francis or Elyona to push them.
Those Limited trying to come out before the longbows get queued up here. Yeah, there you go. They're going to take care of that. Yeah, the walls, will slow their tempo down a little bit as well, because it is kind of a wood increase. They have a little bit of the idle time, but it really does secure their position very, very well in their base. They're not concerned about any back raids much at all. We see some archers coming out for Chuck Francis trying to secure that gold. I was wondering if it'd be like a fast castle with the Culture Wing, but now I just don't really know what the plan is, why you'd go for that with this. I mean, I guess all your other techs and stuff like that are cheaper, and I guess it gives you the option to castle up whenever you get a moment a lot easier. But besides that, kind of an odd choice, besides the fact that he's just not going to go for extra town centers, that it looks like.
I feel like Marine Lord and Beastie know everything they wanted. They've seen the early racks and mercenary camp from Elyona, so they do anticipate some level of aggression. And I don't know if they scouted the range from Chuck Francis, but they should definitely, at some point, be aware of the fact that there are archers being used for Chuck Francis here. So it's going to be, again, a very feudal-focused play, a lot of commitment and investment into army from Chuck Francis and Elyona. This time around, the build-up is a lot more rapid than what we see from Marine Lord and Beastie. They do have a sizable numbers advantage. Now, can they use it? I do not know, because Beastie's already walled off, and now he's heading into Castle Age. if he gets up to Costa and gets Gulam out, this whole composition from Elyona and Chuck Francis will get shut down.
Yeah, Gulams are just when Gulams are the right answer, they are incredibly clutch. Because those archers are just gonna do nothing to them. You know, it would take so many of them to actually do anything. Meanwhile, Marine Lord is like a half a minute from clicking up as well. He is right there with the food and gold almost in hand. Just needs a little bit more. It looks like he might have sold something. Got a drop off, and there is indeed the high trade house coming in a really good spot. That's gonna be like, what do we think? 150 gold a minute?
It's
140.
It's a good spot. I think that's the best spot he can grab. But this is huge. I anticipated a fast castle from Beastie. I did not expect that from Marine Lord. And, in hindsight, these dervishes have basically accomplished nothing. One thing that Beastie could do with them now that he's reaching Castle Age is actually yoink a couple of relics early. But it's terrifying to think that these dervishes were basically unused. And Beastie is still in such a good position. Now, again, those numbers are scary. Quite a lot of limit on javelin throwers and archers. It really will come down to whether Beastie can get enough Gulam out to deal with this. But Marine Lord and Beastie are, to a certain extent, playing with fire here. Basically, no army double fast castle. And you see, now that the walls are breached, archers will start shutting down the berries and the gold. This is getting a little concerning for Beastie, especially because the food. Gulams will cost a lot of food, and right now he's got 120 in bank.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of food. The food's not very comfortable. That's why you see, I believe it was Chuck Francis kind of in Elyona sitting on those berries. The gold, he's got almost 500 gold in the back, so he can make a couple of men-at-arms really easily, a couple of those Gulams. But the berries, the lack of food, once the deer run out, or the sheep run out, it's going to look very tenuous. We see building going down there, trying to deny the Golden Age Tier 1. This is where it gets tricky, and they spotted the relics being picked up. Not sure they're able to do it. See, this is the tricky thing is when you go for this wing, they heal themselves really quickly and efficiently.
And they run away.
It's an automatic aura, so it's really, really useful and hard to kill them when they pick up the relics.
I mean, the poor Limitani are chasing them, but they just run away from it, and that's going to be a massive influx of resources for Beastie. Neither Beastie nor Marine Lord have a sizable economy right now, villagers-wise. As I'm saying, running away, there is one dervish that gets sniped away.
Hey, there's that market I was talking about a little while ago. BC does have a market in place to try and sell off some of the gold to get some food that he needs to keep his eco balanced. That said, he's only got 2 Gulams, almost 3. The men-at-arms, however, Marine Lord is the one who's really cranking him out right now. He's got 5, 3 in the queue.
Yeah, they need those men-at-arms. And if you're Chuck Francis, you're doing exactly what he's doing right now. He's trying to get to Castle Age. You finally, for the first time in this series, forced the hand of Beastie and Marine Lord and dictate the tempo of the game. They both had to go for men-at-arms to deal with this. So now you fast castle or try to castle up and get yourself a couple of crossbowmen. Rams are slowly going down. But there are some casualties on the side of Beastie and Marine Lord. A lot of inefficiency in the economy department. I wonder if it would be better to just try and hit the villagers. Force as much idle time as you can.
Yeah, quite possibly. Well, BC doesn't have like any food under his TC right now. He does have idle villagers just kind of standing around. However, the tricky thing with taking a fight against the Gulams is that the men-at-arms, is that as long as that dervish is there, he's just healing him up. You can't do enough damage to make that worth it. So you really should go find eco and do as much damage as humanly possible, like you said.
Oh,
and
there's the second dervish. Oh, archers slip away, and now you can snipe the dervish. That could be scary for Beastie. He doesn't want to lose that second dervish. He pulls away in time. But at the same time, villagers are being picked off, and this is exactly what Chuck Francis and Elyona want. Punish 2 players that went to Castle Age early by decimating their eco. You cannot fight the men-at-arms head-on right now, but you can just keep running around, picking off villagers left and right, buffer this up until the crossbows arrive. Chuck Francis is halfway up to Castle Age. If you can buy a little bit more time and get some crossbows out, it might just be the thing you need. But at the same time, they're slowly losing all that army. That's my concern right now for Chuck Francis and Elyona. They're slowly being cleaned up, now getting pushed away. And if Beast and Marine Lord are allowed to re-wall, they can also change unit compositions.
Yeah, this is where it gets really, really critical, right? Because you want to distract those men-at-arms as long as possible while maintaining your military mass, because you can't replace the mass right now. You need them to stay alive as like a cheap front line as you mass up the important units back home, so that when they finally get to your base, when Beastie and Marine Lord finally get back, you can actually push them back with crossbows. And they're going to need a lot of crossbows. Chuck Francis ages up there.
Well, he's got 4 ranges, so he can mass-produce crossbows. Elyona is now looking to castle up as the last player as well. Don't forget, though, at the end of the day, Beast and Marine Lord are up to Castle Age. They've been picking up Castle Age upgrades for a while. They started securing relics. That Dervish, that's
Is
going to
going to
be
be
very
not long for the
short-lived.
world. They're in the. This is actually the best
Yeah.
spot that Chuck Francis and Elyona have been in this entire series. This is where like it's. I still feel like they're at an uphill battle, but it is not. Things are not lost. They have a sizable military. The eco is dead even with all the damage they've done.
And
This
let's
is
not
looking
forget,
okay.
They have the composition advantage. Beastie and Marine Lord are still both men-at-arms, basically. Once those crossbows start arriving in larger numbers, these fights will start swinging in the favor of Chuck Francis and Elyona very quickly. Only a handful of crossbows out here for now. Beastie and Marine Lord will leverage this men-at-arms mass to secure the relics. But once the Golden Horn Tower comes in, once a couple more crossbows arrive, Beastie and Marine Lord will have to change up their composition. And Marine Lord just now started doing that. Horse archers are now being queued up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really good choice. This is where it gets tricky, and you know there still are 33 men-at-arm units for the chimps out on the field to play. They're gonna snipe that relic right there. That's a good pickup there. Good denial. But now the Gulams, excuse me, the men-at-arms are in the base. This is where it gets so precarious because you cannot.
That's a
afford to
lot of
lose
villagers
autonomy.
lost as well. And now the Man-at-Arms have to stand and fight here. Love this double dip here. I think Marine Lord and Beastie know fully well that crossbows are on the way. They want to trade this army while they still can. And because Chuck Francis is so busy dealing with all this aggression inside his base, he cannot send help to deal with these Men-at-Arms inside the base of Elyona. Archers are now closing in though, and it looks like Marine Lord is getting cleaned up. Couple of villager casualties on the side of Chuck Francis and Elyona. But they do clean this whole force up, and that's not something that should be, considered insignificant.
Yeah, and without taking massive damage either. I think that's the key thing. You knew you're gonna maybe take some damage, have some pressure, but keeping most things alive, very good. You don't mind having a couple villagers with a little bit less health as long as they don't all die. As long as you can clean up that mass and stay secure. Stabilizing is so important at this stage of the game. We can look at your avenue to victory afterwards, but you have to stabilize. They have so far done that. And again, there's not a clear advantage one way or another. They actually have a military advantage over the chimps at the moment.
Yeah, Chuck Francis is also looking for a second DC here, starting to gather some stone. Makes a lot of sense to catch up in the eco. And that's a good raid by Beastie. He's got 7 Gulams on the field. That's basically all he has. I wonder if he's trying to think Imperial here, because he's not been making a lot of units recently, just piling up resources. Now the crossbows and the Varangians are approaching, though. Marine Lord is going to get pushed back here. It very much seems like Beastie wants to go Imperial, but that might just be a way too dangerous move to make.
I mean, he does have Advancement Wing, I think, does he? Or no, he went for the Dervishes, I think. I think he already went for the Culture Wing, so he does not. Yeah, he went for the Dervishes in Age 2. So
he's got to go Imperial here.
Yeah. But he's going to just make the Imperial play. Yeah. I don't know about this choice, but
Marine Lord did make a switch into Horse Archers, though. And now he's taking this fight as he's standing. He's picking off most of the crossbows, which means that these Men-at-Arms are still alive. And Chuck Francis and Elyona have been trickling in reinforcements in small groups, and they simply haven't yet arrived. They're still struggling to clean up these Men-at-Arms due to the lack of crossbows. And now that this force is cleaned up, it's easy for Beastie. He's going to get up to Imperial completely untouched. And again, I just feel like the efficiency of the fights that Beastie and Marine Lord have been taking is slowly starting to show its effect.
Yeah, Chuck Francis and Elyona did a really good job of pushing in when they needed to, but this swap into Horse Archer was a very smart choice. The mobility it gives him to reinforce the Men-at-Arms at the front, was able to do that really quickly, and then they trade pretty well into things. Their base damage is actually a lot higher than many people might expect. They can't take a head-on fight, but there's not really any Men-at-Arms to worry about. Everything's range stuff for the most part. You see some Varangian guards out there now, but a pretty good choice that definitely helped win a fight or two for him. He's got 9 more coming too, so he's got a lot. He's really relying on these Horse Archers. But again, the kiting that they can do is where they really excel. Beastie, meanwhile, what he had to have clicked up. I wonder what wing he went for.
He did click up.
Military.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Taking the free Dervishes.
It still takes a minute to come in, though. And now you're looking at 14 crossbows from Chuck Francis, a couple of javelin throwers as well against the Horse Archers. Varangians, I would love to see some more javelins or anything that counters the Horse Archers right now, but it's only Marine Lord's army that stands in their way, basically. Marine Lord and Beastie do have a 10 villager lead, and Beastie has a massive resource bank. If he reaches Imperial, he's going to basically realize his full potential. But until then, there might be, you know, a small window here for Chuck Friends and Elyona to do damage.
Yeah, Beastie right now, no military of anything that I can find on the mini map right now. I think it's just all horse archers for the military count. But that'll probably quickly change. Look at how much resources he's banking, resources ready to just pump units once he gets into age.
Yeah,
I feel
Beastie's just
like
piling up resources, waiting
Chuck
for that
France
age
is
up to come in.
floating gold. He's floating gold right now. He's got 1,600 just in the bank sitting there. I really wish Chuck Francis was using that somehow.
He really needs to. He also has a lot of stone. He hasn't yet dropped the town center, though. I think he's been
Oh,
gathering
that
that
feels
stone
bad.
to catch up in the eco with a second TC, but that hasn't been the case. And now Beastie is up to Imperial. He's going to start mass-producing Desert Raiders here. And don't forget, Marine Lord's army is... It's a sizable army, and it's a high-quality, high-tier troops. They also have an easier time reinforcing this fight. I feel like this might be the final window for Chuck Friends and Elyona to make something happen. Beastie has a lot of production, though. Only 9 Desert Raiders, though. It's now or
I'll
never,
say
you feel like.
he's vulnerable right now for the next like 40 seconds, and then it gets really difficult from there. Got to get some damage, and even if they get damage, I don't know if it's gonna be enough. It's a lot of horse archers coming in from the flank, looking to pick off the crossbows and archers.
And once again, men-at-arms are mixed in. I just love that so much. Marine Lord is picking off the crossbows from the backline with the horse archers, and once the crossbows are gone, the men-at-arms, they do such a good job tanking up the damage. Marine Lord, he is cleaning this up all by himself. Beast is slowly getting those Desert Raiders going, but I mean, by the time they arrive, Marine Lord is going to be done with the whole game.
Chuck Francis is just floating so many resources. He's got the wood and stone now to build a TC. He's got 1,600 gold that has been sitting there for so long. I wonder, I don't know if it would make a big enough difference to help even out this game, but if he'd have spent that 1,600 gold somehow, or maybe gotten that TC up a couple minutes ago, he's had the stone for a while, just has been using too much wood for unit production. Meanwhile, this fight just not going their way. They are easily rebuking this, saying, nay, nay, you shall not enter our base unmolested. Please leave, as they clean up their amendments there, and then Elyona surrendering right there, and that will be the game and the series.
I feel, I feel like this series had a very specific theme, and that was just defense, defense, defense from Beastie and Marine Lord. Every single time they waited for their opponents to dive, and then they just cleaned them up, and then essentially either launched a counterattack to wrap the game, or the opponents tapped out. But every single game, it was that defensive game plan that worked out really well for them. In this one, Marine Lord was able to basically hold off these assaults in this latter part of the game. But even if Marine Lord wasn't able to, as you said, Beastie was so close to unleashing a full Imperial Age army from the Iobits that it would have been enough to hold this. But I think it goes to show how good this team is when you just look at Marine Lord essentially being able to solo the defense in this final attack.
Yeah, going horse archers, what an inspired choice, right? I mean, that alone, like just the ability to kite things back with the Medivenging guards, be able to take on the ranged units effectively, and then just be able to dive back and kite all the way home. I mean, go both of them going men at arms, really difficult to deal with as they got to castle first, forcing their opponents to kind of try to poke and prod where they can as they get their age ups as well, and then just flooding the map with horse archers. The mobility on such a small map, um, just really played into their favor. And again, as you said, defense, defense, defense. Best offense is a good defense, right? And we saw that at play right here. One thing we didn't see in this series, or we haven't really seen much at all, we haven't seen a huge amount of siege at all. And I think that's very indicative of the current meta of the game. Gone are the days. I mean, we haven't gotten to late game enough to see mangoes coming into play because they're just kind of ineffectual in Castle Age, right? We also haven't seen any trebuchets. I wonder if Chuck Francis and Elyona, maybe if they'd have slowed the game down, gone for more eco on this last one especially, then maybe take map control, drop a keep, start trebbing stuff down, maybe slow the game down. Maybe there's an avenue for victory that way. But they were in for a rough one no matter what with that last matchup, especially.
But well, that qualifies the Chimps into the main event over here. That means that they do not need to play tomorrow. They are already in the main event, ready for the group stage next weekend. Let's take a look at the remainder of the brackets, though, to see if there is any other team that already bought their ticket for next weekend. And it looks like we do indeed have a couple, Wham and Puppy Paw taking out the Landsknechts. It is a 3-0 win there. And, we've been talking about this over here. Makabaka, the Taiwanese team that really played well in the single game we've seen them play in. They've lost to Vortex and Lucifron. So Vortex and Lucifron, Kosas Kipasan, also in the main event, Canada alongside the Chimps. And we're still waiting for the outcome of some of the other series. But of course, we're not done yet. So don't you worry. We will definitely have some more sets coming your way. We're going to hear from the admins in just a moment. And I think from what I'm hearing, we are going to be heading into the 3 Dita versus Banter Boys matchup.
All right, that'll be fun. Yeah, I don't think we've had any crazy upsets so far today, but some good games regardless. I'd love to see maybe a series go the distance at least. That'd be kind of fun to see. So far, it's been, I think, mostly 3-0s across the board that we have witnessed. But
the magic of open qualifiers, right?
yep. As is the usual. We saw the same thing with I think both the lands had very similar outcomes in the qualifying rounds, and same thing here today. But hey, it's been fun games regardless,
Oh yeah, and there is Whammon saying, "Oh wow, Whammon's team just 3-0ing
so
everybody."
Congratulations, Whammon, on some very well games played.
Yeah, I mean, she was the emotional support on the sideline for this series.
Hey, it's a tough job being the backup QB on a team. Same kind of thing. You got to be ready to play at an instant moment. If Marine Lord sprains a finger, you got to be ready to go. You got to be ready for it.
Exactly. Or if Marine Lord starts throwing games, he might just go get benched and then
might get benched and get to bring in the backup. Yep. Well,
anyway,
either way, I wouldn't want to play against a team that consists Beastie, Marine Lord, or Wham. Any of the 3 of them, they'd wipe me off the map in an instant. So I'd be terrified to play against any of them.